everyone, and welcome to Memory Matters for All Ages. I'm Janelle Nichols of the Gables of Hudson Assisted Living. We want to welcome back to our program Catherine Kilpatrick, a speech-language pathologist with over 4 decades of experience. She is a national speaker, an author of over 30 publications, and an expert on multitasking. And we are going to talk about that today. If you've been a viewer of our program before, you know that Kathy and I have often shared our rather crazy multitasking stories. And Kathy, welcome back to this very hot topic that everyone's looking at now, and that's why we devote at least 1 week a month to this topic.
Absolutely, and I laughed when you said I'm the expert on multitasking. I also am the expert in making all these crazy things, and I have to share with you, I was shopping after the holidays and I came across this, and I have to share this with you. Okay, to-do lists, do you do them?
I absolutely do
them.
Here
you
yes.
go. Here you have, you know, the things to do, the calls to make, and email. But have you ever seen a to-do list where up in the corner it says information overload, and it says yes, no, or maybe, and then interruption overload, yes, no, or maybe? And how often have we talked about that?
We have. That's a perfect statement on what society is. I do, if I could get a couple of these to go. Yeah. But you know, it is amazing what stress, distractions, overload can do to our memory and our focus.
Right.
And we're going to talk about that today.
Absolutely. And the thing is that, you know, when I do these presentations, people are just so eager, because I do them in the workplace, I do them for all kinds of organizations, and even retirees.
Right.
Because guess what? Some people, when they retire, are busier than when they were working.
Absolutely.
So,
well, you know, I was at a chamber meeting where you spoke on this very topic, and I remember afterwards there was a long line of individuals waiting to talk with you one-on-one about this subject.
Right. So well, what we're going to do this time, folks, is we're going to talk about some strategies, and we want to, as we always do, give you initially some things to think about. And please look at the end. There's a link to the website, a link to the program, but also the blog, and it is filled with way more information. This is only a 15-minute program, and you probably have an hour's worth of information and links on the blogs. Here's some things. You know, we can't help with our multitasking unless we're more aware. So first of all, and if I could see a raise of hands in the audience, okay, do you begin the day running? You know, sometimes we just hit the floor and then we're checking the messages, we're doing this, we're doing that. We don't have that calmness of just having a little bit of downtime, and that's something that actually would be a benefit, to get 5 or 10 minutes to just center yourself before you start going like crazy. Has hurrying become your to-do list? You know, so it's like, oh, I got to do this, and I got to do that, and did I do this one, and I must do that, and I need to add that. So you want to pay attention to what your patterns are, because if you know yourself better, then maybe you can figure out where you want to start. So now that we're in this new year, do you have trouble setting boundaries? So what happens, many people will say, well, I always say yes. You know, I feel obligated. And we've mentioned before that stress is when your mouth says yes, and your head says no. And then 5 minutes later, you're trying to figure out how to get out of what you just committed to. Do you have trouble delegating? And sometimes there are people who feel if they don't do it, it won't get done right, and so they don't, you know, give those chores or responsibilities to someone else. So that can be an issue. Can you slow down? And I've read some amazing articles and books about the fact that sometimes that need to go from one thing to another, you know, is part of the pattern for coping with some of the stress in our life. I was reading a novel over the holidays, and it was interesting because it's a newer book, and he was talking about, you know, if I stay busy, then I don't have time to think about the things that are really bothering me. So that can also be part of it. And some people like the rush of the energy, that adrenaline, all of that going on. You know, can certainly, it's like you feel full of energy, but then at the end, wow, I can remember one time many, many years ago before I knew anything about this where I had a lot going on in my personal life that was crazy, and we were filming a video at my house for speech pathology. And oh my gosh, it was such a high, and we had, somebody from the Channel 3 news community come in and be part of it, and we had the camera crews in my house. And I got to tell you what, about an hour after those people left, I mean, I was like a wet dish rag, and so all that adrenaline and all that fun stuff,
Sure,
and then it was
sure.
like total fatigue.
Sure.
And here's an interesting question. Do slow people annoy you? We've become so used to going fast that sometimes, oh, I wish that person would hurry up, or, I don't have time for that, which is then where we see some of the agitation and things that are going on. So these are some things to think about.
So do you have some tips for us? What can we do to bring this to mind each day and to maybe improve?
Okay, we can talk about that. Have you found yourself doing something that's helpful before we get into that? Share something.
I've tried to, the reason why I brought up the driving, I have tried to consciously watch my driving. I have tried to consciously stay on the speed limit. I have tried to not get aggravated at drivers that are giving me looks and honking their horns and tailgate come flying up right on you.
Right.
So I'm trying to work on it in the area of driving because I do drive so much. I'm on the road so much. So that's one thing, if you want to call it a New Year's resolution or whatever, but that's one thing I've really tried to work on.
But what you did there is you had an awareness.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
That's what that first part about. We have to understand what's going on.
I had an awareness that I was getting, I was experiencing a growing aggravation behind the wheel that I knew could lead to a greater aggravation, such as a wreck and standing on the side of the road waiting for the police to come and help me. So I realized that.
Right.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Thank you.
I know. I learn from these programs too, and it's kind of like it's interesting to me. I'm become fascinated by this multitasking aspect, and we have previous shows on paying attention and listening. And I did a program yesterday for a women's group, and I had spoken to another group where many of these people belong to both. And one woman came up to me right before I started, and she said, "You gave a tip last time," and I had talked about memory fitness, kind of the overview, about paying attention for 5 to 10 seconds, and she used the number 7. She said for paying attention for 7 seconds. So that must have seemed like a reasonable amount to her, and I told her I was going to mention it in the program, and she said, "Oh my gosh, that is absolutely the best tip. I now pay attention where I put something." And she says, "I've told a whole bunch of people with that." And she said, "It has truly made a difference in my ability to remember." Well, when we look at the multitasking or task switching, guess what's happening? We're not paying attention in that same way. So here's some things to think about. First of all, we're not computers. So we can't multitask 24/7. We may think we can, and now that I'm getting ready to put my house up for sale that I've been in forever, it's going to be interesting. So first of all, know where you're most vulnerable. Sometimes you create your own distractions. I know I do that. I'm writing a speech and then I have to go and do another one, or, an email where I'm doing a proposal for a program, and I will find that I create a distraction. Fortunately, I work out of my home when I'm doing that usually, and not, like in a coffee shop or something. So I may go and do a load of laundry, or start something for dinner, or play a free cell game, or just do something that has nothing to do with the creative process. And then I can get back on track rather than bringing what I was doing to the other. And I think even in the workplace, taking just a 5-minute something else type of thing to break from that can really be helpful. Or do you do it when you're bored with the task? And I'm certainly guilty of that. It's like, okay, I have to do this, so I'm going to switch to this, and then I switch to something else, doing the task switching. So that could be part of it. I know when I'm doing weeding or picking up sticks after a storm, I now have my iPhone with my Pandora, and I'm listening to music from my era, and you know what? It just goes by very quickly, and I stay focused on something I find very boring but essential. The other thing is to be present. Make a promise to yourself, once you're aware, like you did with the driving, that do not check messages. do not make that phone call. You know, we have choices, and so stay with the task. Research, as we've talked about, says that it takes you 1.5 times longer and you make more mistakes. So trying to be, go to the balcony and notice what you're doing and then make some choices from there. And then here's one, and we're going to talk about more strategies next time, but one that's very, very helpful, and we'll explain, is to make a note where you stopped if you decide to be interrupted or, having a distraction or information overload, because the research is showing that you can actually decrease the time that you lose by task switching from that. So that's a pretty cool thing.
Very good.
Yeah.
One of the things you mentioned when you were talking about you put your music on, related back to the driving issue that I'm working on, I have switched the music that I listen to while I'm driving, especially when I'm driving home from work. I will put classical music on now, which seems to be very soothing rather than something fast, and that has been a help too. So again, being aware of what helps you.
Right, absolutely.
And multitasking, it's just such a hot topic with our society now, and oftentimes we receive resumes for potential job candidates, and on the resume they will list excellent multitasker. And we think we're such to a point in our society that we think that we're bragging about it.
Yep,
we think that is a very positive quality to have, where really we need to realize what it's doing to us, what it can do to us.
Right. And we get choices, and we can make smarter ones. I heard a great comment, and I don't even remember where it was. They weren't talking about multitasking, but what they said is you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. We're here with multitasking, folks. So here's some things that we might try and do this week. Think of a better way to handle your distraction. Okay, very, very important. Remember, we teach people how it's okay to treat us. So I can always remember my son, younger or as an adult, once I got on the phone, it was like, hey, Mom, and it's like, that's not, I'm on the phone, and unless the house is burning down or something. So, how do you want people to treat you with that? Sometimes we just keep jump how high with some of those distractions. Notice what happens and the time delay. I'm very much more aware of this when I do switch to something else, and then I kind of go, oh, where was I in that? And I think we talked about research before. It was like a 6-minute, even 6 seconds of doing something can make it hard for you to just remember exactly where you are. And reclaim your balance. We deserve it.
All right, very good. Kathy, thank you for those excellent points. Please watch at the end of the broadcast, and you'll see Kathy's information there, her website, her blog, where you can get more detailed information about what we talked about today. And I know one area that we did not have time to talk about, and you touched upon it there at the end about the example of the phone call, but etiquette. Where is our etiquette going? And we did a program way back on that. But there's all kinds of resources and information, so watch at the end of the program. Kathy, you always send us on the way with a quote, which I love. What do you have for us today?
Okay. In all aspects of our life, balance is key. Doing one thing too much can cause upset. Like the old saying goes, everything in moderation is the secret. And that's by Catherine Pulsifer.
Absolutely. I say that a lot at home. I don't do it, but I say it. So does that count for something? Maybe?
Absolutely.
There you go. It's a start.
You're planting the seeds.
That's right. Thank you all so much for joining us today. And again, look at the end of the broadcast for further information. Kathy, thank you so much.
Thank you, Janelle.
All right. And I hope you grabbed onto something that you can use this week. Now go and make it a great day.